Stampers Kim from StampingImperfection.com. Thanks for joining me today. I have some fun cards I want to share with you from Sunny Studio Stamps. And the first one is a card that I shared a while ago. I was guest designer on the Hedgehog Hollow in October, and this is one of the cards I shared. The stamp set came in the October. It's called Eskimo Kisses. It's made by Sunny Studio, and it came in the October Hedgehog Hollow card kit. And at the same time, Sunny Studio released their October series, and they had the coordinating Eskimo Kisses die set. So I paired that with the Eskimo Kisses stamp set and created this fun little card to share on the Hedgehog Hollow blog. I also used, this is called the Fancy Circles dies, and I love this. This is one of my favorite purchases from Sunny Studio because it gives me so many options. You can see I created a little frame there. It gives you an outer scallop that I've used as a frame. It just gives you a scallop circle if the frame's not there. Then you get an inner scallop, and then you get an inner piece from inside the scallop. Like, you've got a lot of different options for the stamp set, and it comes with a fun little heart in the center. So I created some snowbanks, I added some glitter, I did a night sky, and that is an embossed using the My Favorite Things stamp that they just released. It's like Snow Flurries or something like that, but it turns out that Sunny Studio has a fun little one that you can use called Frosted Flurries, and that's what I'm going to use today. They also have, they have these tag kits. This one is Tag Builder Set 1, and I really love it because it's got little toppers, it's got little bottom edger things, it's got a little circle to put over the hole. This is not the, they have a second Tag Builder set I don't have, but this is the slider card. I haven't actually made a slider card out of it, but I use it for tags. Another one I'm going to use today in a card is the Christmas Trimmings. That's a new from their October release, as is the Here Comes Santa one. And I'm going to create a card sort of like that Eskimo Kisses one. Then, of course, there's this adorable little critter one. I think this is called Critter Christmas, or that's Happy Holidays. And it's got a coordinating die set, that wonderful wreath. It's just adorable. Those little critters are so cute. They're lots of fun to color. And then there's the little Frosted Flurries stamp set, and they also have this Silver Bell die. And that Silver Bell die goes with a stamp set, or at least I coordinate it with a stamp set that they put out last year called Holiday Style, and it's just beautiful. It's a layered stamp, and very pretty. There's also a Christmas ornament and a bow. It's just a really pretty stamp set. Then last year they put out a die set. I don't know the name of this die set, but it's got mittens and a hat and a mug. I bought it because it coordinates with the mug in this year's Mug Hugs stamp set, which I just think is cute as can be. Last year I also purchased the Playful Polar Bears. That was one of their releases for last Christmas. This year they released I don't know the name of this one either. This is just a die set. There's not a coordinating stamp set with this, and they have released some beautiful 6x6 paper packs that I just love, and you can build some beautiful scenes with that die set there. So lots of options with these. I just love the cards that I've made. I had so much fun with their autumn stamp sets. I just couldn't wait to start playing with the Christmas ones. And to be honest, I haven't made any Christmas stamp sets yet. So I'm coordinating these today with Altenew. Just released 4 new sets of inks. There's a brown set that's actually all chocolates and nuts. It's beautiful. Then there's a green set with one called Mountain Pine that is to die for. And one of those chocolates, by the way, is milk chocolate, so of course I'm using that one. And they have a gray set and a set of purples that they've just released. So there's 4 colors in each set, and they're pretty amazing. So I want to use this stamp set called Christmas Trimmings, and it is a layered stamp set, and they've got 3 different holly leaves with 3 layers each, and they're labeled Like the first one's labeled 1A, 1B, then 1C, then you have 2A, 2B, 2C. So I'm going to start with 1A, 1B, and 1C. And then 1A is the solid stamp. So that I always do in the lighter color, and I stamp that first. Then 1B is the center one, and I'm going to stamp that in a medium color. And 1C is the top detail stamp, and I always stamp that in the darkest color. So I start with the solid stamp, and I'm going to use, these colors are just absolutely beautiful. So I started with the grass field, which is it's pretty limey color, like it's bright. It's a very bright green. And you'll notice that this is the first time I'm using this stamp set, and photopolymer stamps have a thin coat of something on them that you really need to stamp off. So I usually do a couple of, inkings, and like I made a couple practice ones there. And since this is the first time I've used the stamp set, you can see how the stamping gets better, the inking and the stamping improves as I use the stamp. That always happens with solid stamps, especially with photopolymer stamps. You can, if you stamp it first with Versamark, it makes it a little stickier and helps get rid of that film, or you can gently use pumice stone or something like that on it. I just tend to just stamp a couple of times and then it works perfectly. And the same thing is true for the other stamps. So I just took those and went over the first three that didn't turn out great. And if you're super fussy about how your stamps line up, you should use your stamp positioner. I'm not super fussy. Getting it close is good enough for me. And I'm going to die cut these, so I don't mind that they're not perfectly aligned, the layers aren't perfectly aligned. But if you're fussy about that, definitely get out your stamp positioner. My favorite stamp positioner is the Misty. So the second color I use there, by the way, is called Shadow Creek, and now I'm using my new favorite green. It's called Mountain Pine, and Altenew came out with this just in time. And later on, I decided to try layering them in different ways, and the other green is called Firefly, and that's the lightest one. And it turns out that when I used Firefly, then Shadow Creek, then Mountain Pine, that was my favorite way to layer those greens. So I'm just cutting this down, and those are my new scissors. Those are from Tim Holtz, and they're gigantic. They cut beautifully, and they're non-stick. So I like that they have a non-stick surface. If you get a little adhesive, it's super easy to clean off. So I'm pulling out one of my all-time favorite tools. This is my Altenew Mini Blossom die cut machine. I've had it about a year, and I look at those plates. They're still flat, because when Altenew released this, it came with two plates. One was thick, one was thinner, and I always cut on the thick plate. I don't worry about flipping them over or anything like that, and they have really remained nice and flat. And I've been using this since they released it, which I think is about a year. So when you get dies from most stamp companies, you have to cut them apart. So you need to get yourself a set of wire clippers here that are very fine. You want fine tip wire cutters. And I don't cut those little pieces off because I don't want them like flying around and landing on the floor, and I don't want to step on that, and I don't want somebody else to step on that. So I just leave those, and I'm careful when I handle it. So there are 3 different holly leaves here, so I had to find the right die, and I contemplated actually taking a Sharpie and labeling it number 1 after I figured out which one it was, because of course you never grab the first one. And what I love about this, those little plates are about 3 inches wide, so this sits right on my craft desk, this little mini blossom die cutter, and it's just so handy for projects like this. Like I can just, stamp something and then cut it out. For bigger shapes and things, I need to go to my my larger Sizzix die cut machine on the other side of the room, which I have a whole cutting station set up, and I really like that. It works really well for me, but I love having this sitting on my desk. And I store it in one of Stamp and Storage, uh, one of their marker nooks, and I just pulled out one of the shelves, and it fits beautifully in there, and it's always right next to me. So when I have to do a lot of little things like this, I do that. So I'm going to cut all of these out and move on to the. So now I've got all the holly leaves cut out. I've been dying to stamp some of these pine bows. I just think they're so pretty. And I've been, peeking at the blog at Sunny Studios has a blog where they share an inspirational card with their newest releases. And I love this mountain pine dye ink from Altenew, and I literally got this last week, and I just could not wait to use this stamp with this. So I couldn't wait to get back from visiting my mother and my daughter over Thanksgiving just so I could stamp this card. So I'm going to stamp about 4 of these, and there's a coordinating die for that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp these and then cut that out with my mini blossom die. Actually, I'll probably stamp everything, then cut it all out at once. So isn't that pretty? What I love about Sunny Studios stamps like this is that they look so realistic. It's amazing. If you have not seen their fruit stamps, check out their blog and look at, like, over the summer they had fruits, and last year they had this Christmas bell, which I just admired until I finally bought it over the summer. I thought, I really have to have it. It's just beautiful. So I'm going to make a card later with that also, not on this video. But now I'm pulling out the holly berries, and I'm going to, and the pine cone, because this milk chocolate ink is beautiful. And it looks so pretty combined with the that mountain pine. The ink I'm using right now, though, this is the lightest color because I'm using the solid pine cone part, and this one is called hazelnut. The lightest one, there's one lighter than this in this set of 4 called vanilla cream, but I started with the hazelnut, which looks very much like caramel to me. Then the second one, the middle stamp, I'm using the almond butter, which is the second darkest, and I'm not lining this up. I'm not being fussy at all about this. I'm just lining it up and stamping it and hoping for the best there. And then I'm going to move on and do the detailed top stamp with milk chocolate. And I'm not being super careful there. Look how pretty that is. It just looks so realistic, and I have not lined those up perfectly. Oops, I meant to get my milk chocolate out, and so I'm pulling the milk chocolate out, and the top stamp, this is like pine cone C. I forget what they call it. The pine cones are 4, so this is 4C, and this just puts the last touch to make it look 3-dimensional. It's just amazing every time I look at this. And imagine if you added a little white sparkle to look like snow in a few places. I'm going to add some aqua shimmer. I have a Nuvo aqua shimmer pen that I'll add later to that. I just love it. It's just so pretty. And I'm also going to I'm pulling out a couple of reds that I've had for a long time. I decided on velvet and crimson. The velvet is lighter, so I'm going to do that as the solid stamp. And then the crimson will be the dark outline stamp. And I kind of wish I'd picked 2 inks with more contrast. So I really picked 2 inks that were pretty close together. But it still looks like it's shaded. It just would have been more dramatic if I picked something lighter than the velvet. So I'm starting with the solid berry stamps. And there's one that's a set of 3, and then another stamp that's actually 1. I put them both on at the same time, and I left space between them so that when I die cut them, I have space for the die cuts. I'm just stamping a bunch of them. And then I'm going to just place the outline stamps over the top and try to line them up as best I can. And I'll put them down, I'll put a clear block down on top of them, and then just stamp those at the same time. And I don't get them lined up perfectly. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to die cut them, and then I'm going to take a white gel pen, because there's a little white spot on those that, you know, you can add the white gel pen. It's like telling you where to add the white gel pen. Or you don't have to add the white gel pen because the white paper shows through. That's the whole point of the spot. And it's just, I just love how realistic these look when I get all done. It amazes me. This is something Sunny Studio has done really well. They also have some very cute critter stamps, wonderful sentiments, and another thing that I think they do really well is their stamps are really cost effective. They're actually a really good price point. Like some companies, you buy the stamp set and the die set, and it's like $40. That's a lot of money. Sunny Studio is not like that. They have different size stamp sets, and they have like the Eskimo Kisses one there. That was, I don't remember whether it was $4.99 or $7.99, and the coordinating die set wasn't very much different in price, so it was just really cost effective to purchase that stamp set. So now I'm going to cut all this stuff out. I'm going to die cut all these pieces with my little die cutter here, and I am going to put some washi tape on top because this moves around a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back and show you how I put this card together. So now I've got everything cut out, and I experimented with different, combinations of these ink colors, and I tried it without the bright one, which is the grass field one. I started with the Firefly and then used the other two tough layers, and that was my favorite. That one seemed to give me the most dimension, and then I tried it without the Shadow Fields or Shadow Creek one, and I liked that too, but really I liked the one with the Firefly, Shadow Creek, and Mountain Pine. That Mountain Pine is gorgeous. I can't say that enough. So that's going to be my layout. I kind of experimented with my layout, and then I realized I purchased the 6x6 inch paper pattern stack. There's 24 sheets of double-sided paper here. It's called Holiday Cheer. I love their papers. This one is super colorful, and I really like this striped one. It's got like a red, a pink, and a white stripe, and then they've got this nice white check one. They've got snowflakes. I mean, it's just really, there's a mug one there that will coordinate beautifully with that mug stamp set. They have dots, they have snowflakes in all the different bright colors. I really like this paper. It's a nice weight paper, and I like that it's 6x6 because when I buy 12x12 sets, I feel like I waste a lot. So I have a card base I've cut at 4 1/4 by 11. I'm going to use my Score Buddy, and I mean to score this at 5 1/2. Not 4 1/4, 5 1/2. That's half of 11 is 5 1/2. So I score it, and then I notice I use my Teflon bone folder. I love this Teflon bone folder. It's just, I've been using that for about a year now too. It doesn't leave any shiny spots along the top, and it's got a nice point on it. With that score pail, you can also use a stylus if you have one. So that's a 6-inch paper. I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch off, and then I'm going to attach that 1/2 inch strip down the side of my card front, and I'm going to use Altenews, they call it temporary adhesive. It's like a tape runner, and it's temporary until you push it down, and then I love that until you really like push on it, you can actually move things around. So I like this a lot. I use it for all kinds of things. And I left a little hanging off the top and the bottom. I lined it up with the side of my card, and then I trimmed off the top and the bottom with the Tim Holtz paper snips. And I had a little extra adhesive that got stuck, so I pulled out my adhesive remover. I love that thing. It's like a big adhesive eraser. I'm just going to add some of the 3M foam tape on the back of one of those pine boughs. I just love this. It's just so pretty. And I really want a lot of dimension on this card. So I'm going to put one of them directly on the paper with the Altenew tape runner. And most of the time, I don't know why, I just had the tape runner there, so I used it. And then the other one I'm popping up, and I'm going to lay that a little tiny bit over the other one. And I'm leaving a lot of room in that upper left-hand corner for the holly leaves that I'm going to use. And I took a couple of the different color ones, and I'm going to put one directly on the paper, and then the other ones I will pop up on a small piece of that 3M foam adhesive tape. I really like that double-sided foam tape. It comes in huge, gigantic rolls, and it's actually really good. I just bought, Brutus Monroe just came out with their version. I just bought some of that. I haven't tried it yet because I still have a little bit left on this roll. So I'm going to give that a try and see how it is. So I'm popping up one of the pine cones on foam tape and just playing around there. And now I'm going to take the set of 3 berries, and I'm putting a little piece of foam tape on the back of that. And I'm going to add those above the pine cone there on the 2 holly leaves, just to add a touch of red. And if I'm coordinated enough to do that, that is, I will add those. So I just really love this whole set. I'm kind of thinking I should have flipped it the other way. For some reason it looks upside down to me here. But anyways, I will come back with a white gel pen later. I've decided to I need to trim this down because I decided to put that that patterned paper on the side. I need to trim 1/4 of an inch. So I trimmed that down to 3 7/8. So that card front is cut at 5.5 by 3 7/8. Now I'm going to tuck that up in the corner of my mini Misty. This is my mini Misty. This is probably the Misty I use the most. I love stamping my sentiments with the mini Misty because you can stamp them a couple of times and get perfect stamping. And you get bold sentiments that are perfectly stamped. So I've settled on the milk chocolate ink. Of course, I'm settling on the milk chocolate ink. I think this brown is just such a nice touch. It just pairs so perfectly. And again, this is the first time I've used this stamp, so I'm going to need to stamp it once or twice, maybe 3 times even. But the next time I use it, I'll probably only need to stamp it once. And look how pretty that is. Isn't that a pretty color? And I just want to add one extra little touch to that sentiment. I want to make it shiny, so I'm going to take out my clear embossing powder and my Versamark, and I'm going to just use my embossing buddy there across the top, and I waited long enough for that dye ink to dry. So now I'm restamping it with the Versamark, and I'm going to just take this out and dunk it in my embossing powder. And I love this gigantic tub of clear embossing powder. I have one of these tubs for clear and one of these tubs for white, and it took a bunch of embossing powder, but I use my embossing powder so much more now because it's not messy this way. Like, this is perfect. And I don't know how well you can see this, but I always start heating from behind, and that helps it heats up the paper first of all, and then it also helps the embossing powder to stick, and then at the end I just give it a blast in the front to make sure it's all done. Isn't that pretty? It's so shiny. That beautiful milk chocolate color, and now that it's going to fit perfectly on the top. I'm going to cut actually a piece of craft foam. I bought some like a bulk package of this white craft foam. And the easiest way to cut it is on a self-healing mat with a craft knife and a T ruler. It just comes out perfectly. You get perfect cuts. And I'm using this because the last couple times I've used the foam tape, if there's space between the tape and I push down on that card front, then the card bows a little bit. So I decided that I would start using the craft foam. I got this tip from Justin at Stamp Ink and Paper, or JK Cards Online, and I really like this tip. I think this was a really good tip that he gave me. So I'm lining this up with the top and the side, and I like this Tombow Mono Multi Liquid Adhesive because it gives me time to wiggle the card front and get it lined up just the way I want it. And then I'm going to give it a good press all around, and I've got a little smudge on there because I had adhesive on my finger. So I pull out my adhesive remover and just erase away the adhesive. That adhesive remover works on just about every kind of adhesive imaginable. So especially, I'm a mess with liquid glue, and that's the most cost-effective adhesive to use. So of course, I use this a lot. So I'm using my Sakura white jelly roll pen just to add some dots to those berries. I really love this stamp set. The layering is really just well done. So I'm looking for, these are all clear sparkle pens. I want one that's a little bit white that really is going to glitter. So I pulled out my Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen and gave it a little shake and unscrewed the wrong part. I've used this a bunch of times. I don't know why I'm having trouble here, but I really like this. So I'm just going to go down the center of these pine boughs. Now, remember, I use dye ink here. So when I add this, it's like adding water, and your ink can actually run. So I want to be careful not to add too much. And I'm just kind of doing it around the edges, again down the center of the leaves and over parts of that pine cone. And up close, you can't see it, but it is really shimmery and it looks really pretty. So that completes my first card. Oh, actually, no, I lied. I'm pulling out some. I started with Studio Katia. These are Ice Fusion, and I really liked them, but then I remembered that I got some free iridescent sequins from the Ink Road Stamp Company, and I really wanted to use those on the card, so I pulled those out and decided I would use those because they're iridescent. I decided that I wanted to add those to my card. So I put the other ones away because I will definitely be using those. I love Studio Katia and I love Neat and Tangled. I have just a lot of those two brands. I have lots of other brands too, but for some reason those are the two brands I use the most. So when I recently discovered the Ink Road Stamp Company, and when I placed my first order, they sent me a free little silver metallic ink pad and a bunch of these sequins, these iridescent sequins, in a little gift bag, and I really like that. I love when you place an order and you get a little surprise gift in the bag. A lot of stamp companies do that, and it's really nice, or to get a little freebie thrown in. So that's going to complete my first card. And that, again, was the Christmas Trimmings stamp and die set. And it came with that sentiment. Isn't that beautiful? That is really beautiful. And that is Holiday Cheer patterned paper. So the next card that I want to share with you is, I'm going to keep this stamp set out. I actually left that sentiment right in my Mini Misty. So I am still using that Christmas Trimmings, but now I'm going to also use the Frosted Flurry stamp set, the Here Comes Santa, and these fancy circle frames. I love them, and I'm going to create a card very much like this. I'm not going to do the snowbanks on the outside, but I am going to do the night sky, and I want to add a bunch of dimension to that. And I'm not doing the snowbanks because I want to put my sentiment on the outside just like I did on the other card. Okay, so my battery died in the middle here, but basically what I did was cut a piece of masking paper in a circle, and I used some of the, I forget what it's called, fossilized amber distress ink, and put some yellow down, and then I put that circle on top, and then I added some seedless grape or seedless preserve on top of that, and then I'm just layering some of my distress oxide inks, and I added some blueprint sketch on top and some of the chipped sapphire, which is a new color. And I'm trying to leave a little bit of the seedless preserve showing, a little bit of the yellow showing. And then I pulled out my peacock feathers, and I'm going to add some of that too. But before I put the peacock feathers on, I pulled the mask off, and the moon looks super bright. So I want to tone it down a little bit, and I also want to make it look like it's got some clouds going across. So I pulled out, this is called, this is shaded lilac. And I'm just gently putting some shaded lilac over that to tone down that yellow moon. Like, that's super bright. That's like sun. Now I'm adding some of my peacock feathers over the top, and I just want to make it look a little bit bluer. Still letting some of that pink show. I'm trying to avoid the moon, and I use some combination of blues, purples, and pinks, and a little bit of yellow every time I do an evening sky like this. And notice that I have Velcro on the bottom of these Distress Oxides, and not on the bottom of the Altenew inks. The Distress Oxides and the Catherine Pooler inks have nice deep bottoms, so you can actually put Velcro and store your sponges there, but the Altenew do not have that. I have those stored in a different way. So I've used my embossing buddy over the top of this card, and I've pulled out the Frosted Flurries. This is a nice little inexpensive stamp to create snow flurries. I'm going to take my Versamark ink. I'm going to stamp this a couple times, and I really only need to stamp up this in the center. And I like this little stamp. It's an easy way to make it look like snow is falling. There are stencils. Every stamp company has a stamp like this in all different sizes. You can get huge background stamps like this. But I'm putting this behind this circle. And again, now I'm using white embossing powder, and I have these, I got this package of, I think they're like ice cream spoons or something, from Michael's in the clearance bin. It was like 15 for $1 or something. And I'd seen the idea somewhere, somebody had done, I saw a couple people had recommended this. I don't know who I saw it do it first, but it's a great idea. Every now and then I want that little spoon for just this purpose. And again, I'm starting on the back to make sure that it sticks. A lot of times if I start on the front, I notice that the powder will just blow right off. So I start on the back so it melts a little bit, and then I flip it over to the front. That also prevents warping, although I've got a little warping here. But I always like the way the night skies turn out. And I decided to do the moon in this one because Santa and his reindeer should be going across the moon. So I felt like that's a classic scene that I should really carry that tradition through onto my card. So I'm just going to heat set this until it's dry, and I'm going to trim this down a little bit. And I'm also going to cut out, I'm taking the medium circle. There's 3 circles altogether in this fancy circle frame set. So I'm taking the medium one, and I'm going to take another piece of white cardstock, and these are cut at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, by the way. And I don't have that centered perfectly, but I'm not worried about it because I am going to trim it down. So I'm looking for my other cardstock, and I kind of see where I'm placing it here. And I'm going to take this over to my Big Shot, and I'm going to cut that out. So I'm really going to speed this up, but I want to show you that you get a nice scallop circle You get a couple pieces you can use as frames, and you get that centerpiece. I keep all my extra pieces because I'll use those in my Canva bullet journal, and I'll use those in scrapbook pages. So I'll put all that aside, and now I want to stamp these two stamps from the Here Comes Santa, and I want to do them, I want this to almost be like a silhouette. So I've decided that I'm going to do those trees in that mountain pine color because I have to. But the Santa and the sleigh I just want to do in black. They're going to be like they're in the distance, but the trees could be sort of up front. So I'm using that Altenew mountain pine. Again, this is the first time I've used this stamp set, and it's a solid stamp set, and you can see the ink sort of just bubbles up. So I ink it up again. This is the reason why I'm using my Misty though, and why I have that paper tucked in the corner. The next time I use this stamp, I will only have to ink that up once, but there is that film on all photopolymer stamps. So I stamp it 3 times, and wowie zowie, it comes out perfect. And I only needed to stamp Santa and his reindeer twice. That was smaller. I think I was just quicker on that one. And I contemplated adding clear embossing, but I decided against it. I'm going to fussy cut it out, so I don't want to do too much. I hit it with my heat gun though to make sure it was super dry. And now I'm going to fussy cut, and by fussy cut I mean I'm using the Connie Stewart method. Connie Stewart did a 2-minute Tuesday tip, or I forget what she calls them, where she just sort of she showed that she just sort of like wiggles it up and down when she's got to cut around something like this. She doesn't cut out perfectly. Who wants to spend that amount of time? If they wanted me to cut it out perfectly, they should have come up with a coordinating die. That's how I feel. So I use Connie Stewart's little trick of just kind of wiggling it around and not making it perfect, and just leaving a bit of white space, and trying to make sure that it's all smooth, like not like angly. So that actually works out pretty well for me. I'm going to do the same thing with Santa and his sleigh. This is fussy enough for me, and you know what? It looks okay on the final card. If you want to cut it right down to the nibbins there along the edge, you go right ahead. Yours can be perfect. There's a reason why I named my blog Stamping Imperfection, and this is one of the reasons. Like, that's perfect enough for me. So I'm going to trim this down, and I'm going to make this, I think I'm going to trim a little off each side, and I'm looking for that same piece of striped paper that I had, although I am testing out a few other ones. Oh, there's so many pretty papers in this pack, and they're so bright and colorful, but I didn't want too bright and colorful with the colors I had chosen for the backdrop of this card. So I really liked the way that last one looked, and I love the stripes. I don't know why. So I'm cutting off a little bit more, and I believe I have that cut down to 3 7/8. It's 5.5 by 3 7/8. So I trimmed down the top of that so it was the same size, and I'm just cutting a 1/2 inch. Notice that I slid the paper so the edge was right along the edge of the trimmer, and then I moved it over a 1/2 inch, and I was looking at the left hand side to read the amount that I slid it over, because that's where I could actually see the markings. So I'm just doing the same thing I did with the Altenew adhesive, trimming off the top and bottom, and then I'm going to add a bunch of the 3M foam tape here, because I have this circle die cut, and I've got a little ink, so I'm pulling out my sanded eraser and just checking the dimensions of everything. And I'm just going to start putting a bunch, and I'm going to put a lot. I'm going to put it pretty close together because I don't want it to bend. But I got one piece of tape on and remembered I needed to add my sentiment. Thank goodness I remembered. And the sentiment is still placed perfectly for the front of this. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to use that milk chocolate ink, and notice I only had to stamp that once this time. And now I'm going to use the Versamark and the clear embossing powder, and I'm going to heat set it. And that comes out super shiny, so I feel like that's a nice touch. Instead of the snowbanks, I added a bigger bolder, shinier sentiment. So I'm covering a lot of this, and I'm actually going to take a piece and I'm going to cut this in half so that it fits down the sides of the card next to the scallop. And I'm just going to fill in as much of that space as I can. I'm going to go take the extra pieces and go along the top and just really get a lot of adhesive on there. That way, if I push down on it, which I no doubt will, I won't bend the card front. It's got a lot of support behind it, and I don't realize at this point that I've actually got a little bit of that the card back showing. I'll trim that off later because I will realize that. So I want to tuck those trees down. I want them to look like they're close up front, and I've got some 1/4 inch 3M tape which I really like, and it's not quite as thick as the 1/2 inch, so it tucks nicely under that top piece that I have the 1/2 inch on. And I'm going to tuck that down as far as I can so that when I put that scallop frame around it, the tree bases are covered by the frame. So I'm going to do that next. And I've got this Stampin' Up! These adhesive strips, which are actually much thicker than the other foam tapes I have. And I basically go around and snip this at every like 1/4 inch. I don't snip all the way, I snip, like halfway through that strip so that I can bend it. Like if you sew, you do this when you put sleeves in and do shoulder seams or curved seams. So I can bend this around. This is how I do my shaker cards, except that I fill in every space with this. These little foam pieces work really well for shaker cards. And I don't quite cover the whole thing. I should have covered the whole thing because you can tell the spots that I don't after I put it on. And I'm going to line this up so that the scallops fit in, but they're popped up a little bit higher than the base of the card, and I really like the way that looks. I think it's a fun frame. I'm going to trim this a little tiny bit more around both ends so that this fits across. I want to put that across the moon, and I'm going to use that 1/4 inch foam tape from 3M again and put this in the center, and I really like this. I think that's fun. And before I add the finishing details, I'm going to put this on the card base, and I'm actually just adding some of the liquid, the Tombow Mono liquid glue here. I like this. This is probably the adhesive I've used the most. I'm messy with it, but honestly, it works really well, and it gives me a little time to play. So I noticed that I had a little sticking off there, so I trimmed it off with those nonstick scissors, and I'm removing the extra adhesive that I got all over the place with my adhesive eraser there. And again, I just am trimming this up with these really nice nonstick Tim Holtz scissors. Those are just nice, really nice. I got those last week, so I'm very excited about them. So now I'm going to put some finishing touches. I'm going to take that Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen and add it all around the scallop to give it a really nice shimmer. And then I'm going to add it to the trees, and I'm being careful not to put too much on because that's dye ink. The black is permanent ink, so it doesn't matter, that's not going to run, but those trees could run if I'm not careful. And the last touch I'm going to add is my Studio Katia iridescent sequins. I just love iridescent sequins and bubbles. I don't know why, I just love them. They don't look purple up close, but in the light they have a very purpley sheen, so I really like them. So I'm adding a few of these, and I'm going to add these on just like I did before, using my quick stick and my multimedia mat. This is the best glue for this kind of stuff, and this is an easy way to do it. You need some kind of jewel picker here. So give this video a like and share with your friends on your favorite social media. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, and I will have all the links to the Sunny Studios and all to new products below. that I used to make these 3 cards, and I'll have all the details on my blog at stampingimperfection.com. And if you're shopping today, which is the 25th of November 2018, or tomorrow on Sunny Studios, with the links below, you can get some special deals. Thanks for watching.